Well, hello out there. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Annette Richmond. Welcome to the Smarter Career Moves LinkedIn live show. And my guest today is Anna Morgan. And we were chatting a little before we went live. And I think we came on each other's radar about a year ago. But this is our first time meeting. And I'm so thrilled that you said yes. So for people who do not know you, can you talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Anna Morgan, known as Career BFF. I have been a recruiter for over 15 years, started in agency, and I now also worked in corporate, and now I do recruiting consulting, and I also do job search strategy coaching, evenings, weekends, and as a side hustle, I am a rescuer of four dogs. I am a mom of a little woman who's 13. I've been married for 22 years. I am a certified yoga teacher, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. So I think that kind of encompasses a little bit about me and what I'm all about.
Well, we're already getting love on that. And I'm a proud rescue dog mom of two. So I hear you on that front. They say we say that we rescue them, but boy, they rescue us, I think, at least in our case. They just bring so much joy. Um, so
Absolutely.
so I'm glad that you already mentioned your sort of dual role because you describe yourself on LinkedIn as like a recruiter by day and a career coach by night. And as someone who worked briefly as a recruiter, I did contingency for just a couple of years. But I know that having that perspective is really helpful for the clients that you work with. So what sort of prompted you to start doing the coaching? Because it's kind of recent.
Yeah, so it was actually just a couple months, I think about 6 to 9 months before the pandemic hit. And I had had a successful career in recruiting. I was thriving in talent acquisition and corporate, and I had gone to Costa Rica on a women's retreat and really just kind of had this download that I was ready for entrepreneurship. And I came back and started engaging more. And I noticed a little bit of a shift on LinkedIn and started working with Judy Fox. Do you hear a echo?
No.
Okay, I do. I don't know what it
Oh,
is. So I started getting really curious about LinkedIn, really listened to that internal pull to start coaching and took fast action to leverage my years of experience in sales, business development, and recruiting to empower and serve job seekers as I was seeing things evolve and change, and an area of opportunity to educate, add value, and build confidence, right? Especially for some of I tend to work with Gen Xers, maybe, late Gen Xers, early boomers, maybe traditionalists, those that are a little more experienced in the workforce that are still trying to acclimate to some of the newer, more modern day, job search strategies.
yeah. I think there's challenges certainly at different ages, different stages of your career. And I work with more senior level people as well. So we'll have to talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to also ask you, now that you're coaching, does that, give you a different perspective as a recruiter? I would think it would, but is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely gives more real time insight in the coaching aspect because I'm actively in the seat working with the hiring managers, the decision makers, being in that real time, seeing where, there's an acceleration of hiring, where they're pulling back, where I'm having opportunities to work with hiring managers on, here are some of the talent insights I'm seeing Here's where I feel like we could be more flexible to attract better talent. And through those conversations, it allows me to give job seekers that I'm coaching more language and tools to elevate themselves, to sell themselves more effectively, with the modern day problems or, situations that organizations are faced with as they're looking to hire.
Okay, so Seb in our audience, hi Seb, says that he is hearing an echo, that maybe one of us has a speaker near the mic. My mic is pretty far from my speaker.
I just moved it. It sounds better to me. I think it sounds better now. So I think we're good.
Okay, so let us know if that sounds better to you. And I think that is so important, the idea of employers having that perspective on what job seekers think, and particularly with the way things have shifted, the way people's values have changed and whatnot. I mean, I remember when I was working as a recruiter myself, and I was working in the digital marketing space. And one of the clients that we had, I was working for a firm in Dallas, was looking for a graphic designer, and I found a great guy, and he he went in, and they loved him. They loved him. But he said to me, you know what, I'm going to pull out because the hiring manager is just not responding to my questions when the candidate was asking about, the company and things that he would be doing, et cetera.
Interesting.
The interviewer just was not responding, and so, they have to realize that, it's a two-way street.
Yes, it's a mutual conversation, and we're in this odd time. It's the jobs are search zone, or the twilight zone, kind of, where in the last couple of months we've had lower unemployment. We've had this demand on talent for really specific jobs, but we've also had this pool of talent that really wants to work, that is maybe coming from a more non-traditional background. Could be home care providers re-entering the workforce, those looking for more flexible schedules and whatnot. And we're just not quite seeing the flexibility from the organizations yet to embrace those talent pools. So there's like this disconnect still happening, where it's like hiring managers are saying, I can't find people. And you're hearing job seekers saying, I'm so exhausted from looking for a job. Like, why isn't this happening for me? So it's just wild out there right now. So, I think the key is to, be visible, keep building your brand, start as many conversations, make sure that you're building your skills, be willing to have, explore stopgap positions, and flexibility, I think, is going to be, a key differentiator for folks, especially this third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I hear that too. I hear a lot of shifting. I have a good friend who has a recruiting firm, and he has told me that and I've heard from other recruiters, that he is having to fill positions for free a second time because people are there and they're not staying. They're just deciding that they move on. And then, of course, there's all these studies that say, money is not the most important thing anymore. It's about, the flexibility and feeling valued. And I'm curious if you see that people have sort of come into their own value.
Yeah. And I mean, it's important, right? Really understanding your worth, and knowing what you want, because we only have a certain amount of time here on this earth. And we want to make sure that we're doing work that aligns with our values and helps us to be our best self, right? There's that echo again. Anyway.
I hear some tapping.
Could be just me. I'm trying not to move.
Okay.
Lost my train of thought.
Oh, just about people understanding their value, I think, and knowing that, we want to, work with companies and where we feel that we're valued, and companies that align with our values.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we had this kind of great awakening through the pandemic, and even as recently as 6 months ago, it was very much a candidate market, and candidates had a little bit more control. We're definitely seeing a downturn and a shift right now, which is making the landscape more competitive for job seekers. But owning your value, knowing what you want, but also being flexible, I think is going to be key, because within reason, right? Organizations have had, leaders of organizations have had a lot to face since this pandemic, right? And it's the age-old problem of, prioritizing profits and people, and how does that all work? So we're still going to see a slower shift in, building programs to boost engagement, or lessen turnover in organizations, or offering more training to middle line managers on how they can sell these opportunities to candidates as they're going through. We're still seeing quite a bit of pushback for organizations that are trying to bring candidates back into the offices, right? So organizations that are demonstrating that agility, innovation, and flexibility, those are going to be the folks that are going to end up attracting top talent, but also are going to work smart in tapping into those talent pools of the amazing humans that we see on LinkedIn all day that just want to work. And they could be a transitioning teacher. They're looking to leverage their skills in a different way. So it's about looking at those transferable skills and what they can do in the future, not necessarily what they've just done, and get out of this mindset of just checking these perfect little boxes. So we're definitely seeing a shift in the recruiting space in that regard.
Yeah, you just reminded me of something I read, and I can't remember actually where I read it, but it was the idea of employers just being more, more intentional with their job descriptions. The idea of having requirements of say a bachelor's degree. It's just, there. It's just always there when it's not necessary. And that they're missing out on candidates because they have these things in the job description that are not needed for that job.
Right. So there's several kind of challenges there, right? My years working in talent acquisition and recruiting, nobody wants to take the task of writing the job description. And many times,
can't imagine why not.
Right. The hiring manager might be tasked with that. And everybody's trying to push the job description writing off to other people. And so that's a fundamental challenge with many organizations I've seen, through my agency career and corporate career. The second part is candidates will, just automatically disqualify themselves, women specifically more than men, and won't even apply for a position because they're like, oh, I don't meet ABC requirements. So while we've had this downturn, especially in the talent acquisition space where many recruiters have been laid off or furloughed, I am definitely seeing more people work on those ATS systems and processes. So hopefully organizations are looking at tightening up their processes.
Yeah, I just heard that little echo myself. And I do want to ask you about, I know you've developed your, Career BFF, and that's how you are known, as the Career BFF. And you created this whole sort of coaching program. It's specifically 10 weeks where you say that you turn overwhelmed and lost job seekers into confident job closers. And I love that. I love that, because I think as you mentioned, and I'm sure that, this is part of it, and maybe you can expand on that. A lot of it is mindset. Even down to things like age discrimination. Not that it's not out there. We know that it is, but if you're expecting it, you're going to see it even if it's not there. And so if you can talk a little bit about, about your program. You mentioned that you developed it out of like your experience and recruiting, et cetera. But if you can just share a little bit about that program, and does a lot of it focus on mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we focus on expands, right? And it is built on, some of the core areas that I have expertise in and where I've kind of had my own professional journey. And, you know, let me check my mic and that my audio. Okay, my audio is correct. I don't know why that's bugging me. So the BFF B, the first B is behind the recruiter curtain, because I leverage my expertise in the recruiting space to empower job seekers to work with recruiters more effectively, to manage opportunities, and just have more success in that place. And then F is focused and fulfilling strategy that works for you. So there is no perfect method for all job seekers. I mean, if you look at just the millions of positions and all the wonderful, diverse people that fill those positions, you have to take what works for you, right? And so strictly providing some best practices and then ways that you can customize those strategies that work with your personality, whether you're introvert or extrovert, those types of things. And then the last F is, fabulous self-love, which is, I truly believe if we aren't willing to do the inner work, right? And we aren't willing to love ourselves and recognize our own brilliance, how will those who are, supposed to hire us be able to see that if we can't see it in ourselves, right? And we're always going to shine more brightly when we are doing that work. And so, sometimes it's where, job search strategy meets life coaching, meets wellness coaching. And I have a history in recovery. I've been sober for 11 years. And so a lot of my kind of recovery principles are also kind of sprinkled into this 10-week program. So, I feel like you get a best of all the aspects of Anna Morgan, and it's a way to, elevate you personally and professionally so you can find that aligned work. And then you take these tools with you for the rest of your career.
I as I'm glanced over at it, and I see the idea of the vision, values, beliefs, and goals, and once you discover that, and you have your skills, your transferable skills, and you are ready to go. I'd like to ask you to put on like sort of the coach and recruiter hat. How do you find the right fit, and also the idea of, I believe in trusting your gut, because the worst jobs I ever had, I did not trust my gut. I got said, don't go there.
100%.
And
Yes.
I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to go there anyway. And the worst one, I only lasted like 6 weeks. And
Yeah.
I called up one day and said, you know what? I'm not coming in today. And they said, okay, are you going to be in? It was right before Thanksgiving. Are you going to be in like Friday? And I said, no, I'm just not coming back. And, I was younger, so I passed it off to that. But,
Yeah.
so again, it's a big, long question, but I'd love to hear
No,
your
it's,
thoughts.
you know, again, it's like radical honesty with ourselves, right? And, we can have this vision for our career, right? We have to look at our values, or like what is important to us, so that we can be aligning that with the future opportunities. And then our beliefs, how are we thinking about ourselves and others and our circumstances, right? And then what are those habits and actions that we can, take to move us to those goals? So I have my clients go through like a career inventory, where we break down, a lot of their past positions, because I know as a recruiter, sometimes we bring in the baggage from our past experiences. And sometimes we may, just leave a position out of pain, right? We may have a toxic boss. We may have unhealthy work-life balance. There may be some financial insecurity. And so we're in this panic, fight or flight mode, and we're not really looking at does this job align with my values and my vision for my future? And am I being really honest with myself when, I set out on this course with my career action plan, right? And so it's basically like a way to audit yourself as you're evaluating opportunities, because there's so many moving parts. Like in theory, job seeking and recruiting is simple, but the execution of it is wildly complex, right?
Mhm.
And so it's just, again, like having that self audit and that self awareness, and that's why, the self love, and then also, incorporating those other aspects, really build a strong foundation of confidence. Because when we are confident in ourselves and that we're headed in the right direction, we are going to make the right choices in service of our long-term goals. And sometimes that may look like taking a stopgap job, doing something in the interim. I responded to a comment the other day that there's no shame in the game of taking a job just to take a job right now if you have been in the job search process for a long time. If I found myself without a job tomorrow and I struggled to, find a role equivalent to where I am or where I wanted to be, my background is in either sales or, hospitality. I worked in restaurants for years. Everywhere I go right now, people are hiring in that place. So you'd probably find me in a coffee house or breakfast place, slinging pancakes and coffee, or behind a bar making a really bad apple martini, which I was never really good at.
I love that you say that, because I spent many years in the restaurant business myself, primarily as a bartender, but also as a waitress and even
Yeah.
a part-time DJ at the disco. So, it's I will say that I think a lot of the communication skills that I developed, that served me when I was working for a magazine and interviewing people all the time, I developed working in the restaurant business. And I think it always upsets me that I feel people who work in that industry are just not given the respect that they deserve, because I worked with some of the most
I think
talented.
everyone should have to work in a
Oh,
restaurant at some
absolutely.
point in
You
their
know,
career,
the
because you learn people skills, customer service, like thinking on your feet, upselling,
Yep.
thinking 5 steps ahead of where you're supposed to be. And it's fun. It's a great experience, or at least it was for me. So,
It
and
it
that's just, if the bottom fell out. But this is also the value of, always leveling up your skills and considering having a side hustle. If you are employed, having, different areas where you can add value. Because I have noticed in my career recently, my Career BFF business actually has elevated me in my full-time recruiting role, and has allowed me to stretch my skills in other ways to be of service, where I couldn't have anticipated that. So it's been quite a blessing.
Oh, I so agree with you. All of the experiences that we have really, help us, and people discount that. But I'm always happy to meet someone else who has worked in the restaurant business, because they get it. They get it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask you, before I want to talk to you a little bit about your show, but
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, because there's two things that I noticed in your program. And I mean, you do it all: resumes, interview prep, and all of that. But
Hmm.
I'd like to talk to you about, or I should say, ask you about networking. And I think the reason for that is, so many people think of networking and they think, oh, you know, networking, they think of it as transactional, and they think it's like, I lost my job or I'm looking for a job. Now's the time to go out and network. And they think of it, as I said, transactionally, and they don't realize that when I'm looking for a new hairstylist, I'm asking my friends. If I'm looking for a new vet, I'm asking my friends, and that's networking. So, can you talk a little bit about how people can stop thinking about it in sort of that negative way, and your approach that you teach people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it comes back to just having that curious mindset, right? And it also comes with a level of humility and being willing to start conversations. I tend to attract like social media introverts, which is really fascinating because I tend to very much put myself out there. Universe, not sure what that's all about, but it's about, how you can work smart with what you have, right? So instead of the first step one is, don't automatically think you have to go out and start all these new relationships. Look through your phone, like audit all the phone numbers. I mean, I have, phone numbers from past teachers at my daughter's school, or people that I volunteered with. I would look through other social media channels like Facebook and Instagram, and just kind of do some due diligence. And I've been pleasantly surprised in the past. And I take this from my business development background, just being curious, like, how could I connect these dots? And this is the same kind of approach that I encourage job seekers and people in general to just be aware of, is like, oh, well, I didn't realize that Steve I went to high school with is actually the chief financial officer of a, multi-million-dollar gas company just down the road. And because of that relationship, when I was in business development, it would make it easy, because of my relationship with Steve, and I was selling accounting and finance staffing, to give him a call and start a conversation. So the same thing applies in this regard. Look at what you have that's closest to you first, but also make networking a part of your time management strategy, whether you're employed or not, because it's that, saying your net worth, or your network is your net worth. I mean, we say that over and over and over here on the platform. And, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I literally cringe and ache for the people that came to the platform, started networking, started, elevating their profile, getting visible, got the job, and then they're out, right?
Oh, yes.
And now we have this downturn again, and they've been laid off or furloughed, and they've done nothing between getting that job and now, and they're just like, OMG, what am I doing? So, it is not hard to have a sustainable strategy here on LinkedIn. You can just comment. You're a big, LinkedIn fan as well. You don't have to be a creator necessarily. Engagement actually gets you visible, and alerts the platform that you're here, and, rewards you for your engagement, right? So work with what you have, start more conversations, and stay consistent with your visibility, specifically on LinkedIn, and just make it a part of your daily practice.
I love that. There's two things in particular that stood out to me. And yes, I am I'm a fan of LinkedIn. I'm on there commenting, every day. I usually start in the morning while I'm having some coffee. And I have colleagues of mine say, "Oh, I see you. You're everywhere." Well, I'm not everywhere,
Same.
but I'm
Yeah.
commenting. And so that's why you are seeing me. But I also wanted to pick up on what you said about sort of going through the phone book. And people think of their circle, like, I'm going to tell my circle. But when you get outside of your circle, those are the people that may help you even more, because they know people who are not in your circle, and they can bring you up, or what you're looking for, to people who don't already know you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, I'm always going to stick with me personally, the people that know, like, and trust me, right? That have had an experience with me, and they're like, yes, Anna Morgan gets it. And so it's easy for me to start those conversations and, send you a quick text and say, Annette, I'm actually going to be, looking for a new senior recruiter position, if you know of anyone, but then it's not such a heavy lift going out and trying to start those new conversations.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I guess what I was really thinking is if your partner or spouse or whoever has a company picnic this summer, it's a great place for you to go because there you will meet people that you don't already know in that comfortable situation. So I guess that's really more what I was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, some of the other best places are, yeah, I've had great clients from, working out at Orange Theory or at the yoga studio or through other volunteer experiences. So just being, conscientious of that and having those conversations convert to people opening doors and keeping you top of mind.
So I would like to ask you just briefly about your show, which your show is on Thursdays at noon Eastern, so a little bit later. And so what was the impetus for you to start that show? And how do you choose your topics? What you're just going to be covering?
Yeah, thank you. So, I am going live every Thursday at noon Eastern from my business page, which is a little bit different. So I'm testing something new out. Today is episode number 7. I'm very proud of myself. Us neurodiverse people struggle with consistency. But the intention behind it was to show up every week, even if it's for 15, 30 minutes, to solve one problem under the common themes that I typically coach to. So the first 30 Thursday is behind the recruiter topic. So a challenge that folks are having with recruiters. The next would be, strategy focus, could be resume, could be salary negotiation, kind of more general strategy job search questions. And then like today is around fabulous self-love. So I'm going to share, 5 strategies that I recommend with my clients to, boost their self-love strategies, so that they can show up confidently. And then the 4th week is kind of an ask me anything. So in true transparency, you've seen me on Clubhouse. I love to coordinate and highlight other people. It is not in my DNA to be alone on a live show. So this is actually in service of my community and building, adding value to job seekers and career changers. But it's also in service of pushing an uncomfortable edge for Anna Morgan, because I struggle just like job seekers with imposter syndrome and some anxiety and, being alone on a live for 15 or 20 minutes. So that is why I show up every Thursday. And, in the short 6 episodes, I'm feeling a little bit more confident and having more fun each time I go live. So progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned imposter syndrome. We all feel it, I think. And to my mind, if you never feel it, then there's something missing because, that's just my own opinion, obviously. But,
Sure.
I'm watching the clock and I want to ask you, though, what would you say you think maybe a few of the top challenges that are most common to job seekers? If you can give it just maybe 2 or 3.
A common thread that I'm seeing right now is one with people that are trying to pivot, and a lot of folks in general trying to be everything to everyone. And so your message gets confusing. And as you know, in sales and consuming, confused people don't hire, confused people don't buy, right? So it's being able to get that career clarity, pick a lane and focus on that for a period of time versus constantly switching gears based on what you're seeing. In my experience, it's better to focus on 2 or 3 areas that that you could walk in and provide value, and have people tap you on the shoulder and say, Annette, I know that you're focused on these 2 areas, but do you do this, right? The second thing is, everyone just gets in the tizzy about their resume, and they spend all this time like editing it. And, I work on resumes, you work on resumes, and there is definitely some core key things that you need to do to convert, right?
Mhm.
However, spend less time editing and spend more time talking to people. I mean, super simple. Conversations are going to convert. Get people to connect with you and ask for the resume. Because once they connect with you and see your brilliance and you're able to tell your story, what you've done, where you're going, what you're capable of doing, the resume is just an added benefit to that conversation. So I just see too many people getting in this analysis paralysis, just going crazy anxiety over the resume. And it's like the recruiters, we spend a very limited amount of time going through it. Obviously we do the screen with you. We get the core things that we need to get you to the next step. And yes, there are fundamentals that you have to have. But I see too much of that analysis paralysis, and not enough like outreach and conversations happening.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And I think a lot of times people spend too much time getting ready to do something, and they should be actually doing it. And I agree with you.
And I mean, they say time kills all deals, whether it's sales or recruiting. And timing is everything in recruiting, like right place, right time. And to answer Donald or Lewis's question, he said, how often should you follow up with recruiters? As a recruiter, pleasantly persistent, because our inboxes are hairy. So within reason, and I can say confidently that even though sometimes I might have had someone that was pleasantly persistent and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person's following up again. But at least they caught me at that right moment that I could, extend them the professional courtesy to get back to them. Because we do try to get back to people, but we're not perfect. No one is. So I think, there's a way that you can follow up with different methods. It's also about asking the recruiters up front, how do they like to be, followed up with? Do they prefer text, email, direct message? And if you really need to stand out, do a video.
Yes. So I won't get into that because we could have a conversation about video for another 15 minutes. As you know, I'm a big proponent of doing video, but I just want to be mindful of the time. And so I want to ask you if you have any, our conversation is gone. We've talked about a lot of different things, but is there anything that I haven't asked you, we haven't discussed, that you think is important to mention as we're closing out now?
I just think it's important for those that have one, I want to honor and address those that may have been in long-term, job search first, because I feel like they are experiencing a little bit of a heavier angst with the rise of some of these recent layoffs. There were some newer layoffs announced earlier this week. So, I want to extend just an extra bit of encouragement to those folks to, keep trudging the road to their happy destiny. Keep taking messy aligned action to reach those goals, and really focus on your self-care and how you can start more conversations. And then, obviously those that have gone through recent changes, I would say just buckle up and be smart as we head into kind of this third and fourth quarter, because hey, listen, we're resilient. We've gotten through the pandemic. We've been up, we've been down, and it's all about offering grace to each other and being kind. And ultimately, how can, we all be a career BFF to others? How can we answer the call to be of service and, do a mock interview or review a resume or offer an informational interview? So with that, I am complete.
Well, I love that. I love that. I think that is a great note to end on. I thank you so much for being here, and everyone else, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again on next Thursday.